Welcome to the Nexus Unloaded podcast. This is Will Crozier.
And I'm Nikki Westcombe. We are the founders of Nexus Performance. Joining us on this wild ride is our heavyweight coaching team, ready to unleash their expertise to solve any problems in your journey to getting strong and jacked.
Through our real-world experience, we hope to break things down in a digestible, applicable, and entertaining way.
So pump up the volume and let's get into this.
Oh, sorry.
Blood pressure bill over here.
My blood
mad.
pressure's good.
It's good. You're a healthy boy coming into comp.
Good at the moment, yeah.
How many weeks out are you?
12. 12 and a half. 12,
Yeah,
something like
12 is officially where comp prep starts, according to the internet.
that. Yeah.
Yes.
That was the week we transitioned back to low bar, which was Friday.
Yep.
And yeah, it's good.
You need a deload already.
I am deloading this week, yes. But that's because I'm traveling to Cairns.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
if we worked
practical
it out
deload.
from like 4 weeks ago, I kind of started my comp prep at obviously like 15, 16 weeks out.
Yeah.
Going back to wraps and things like that just to get the couple of week grace period.
Mhm.
Used to those now, then back to low bar, deload this week, go.
Then into the fun stuff. Into
Yeah.
into your favorite low bar, everybody's
I
favorite
love low bar.
exercise. I love
Looks
shifts and
like
big
it when you're
loads.
doing them. Yeah.
No, I don't like the look of them. Like it's just I just like low bar.
Yeah.
I don't know.
As opposed to high bar or just other squat
I'm just not very
variations?
good at high bar.
Mm.
I'm not good at high bar. It's just being tall and trying to stay so vertical and like can just fucks me around.
It's not a comfortable exercise.
And I'm
I
just,
always
like,
hated
I always
it.
fuck it up with putting it on my traps.
Yep.
So it's like sometimes
Put it a
it's
bit too
higher,
high.
sometimes it's lower, sometimes it just sort of moves around.
Just have to get. Doesn't matter though.
Nah.
You're talking maybe a centimeter.
Yeah, I know.
Like it's not. There's not
Well, there's not much difference between my high bar and low bar anyway. It
yeah,
is literally-
exactly.
it's fuck
Exactly. That's
all,
kind of
so-
the point. Yeah, I remember when I was training with Tyler Hope, and we training. He had done powerlifting before. He did some equipped powerlifting well before I did. Before we both did bodybuilding together, and so he was like a low bar enthusiast, and he would do it all the time in our bodybuilding training, like whenever squats were written onto the program, because
Rough.
back then it was just written as squats.
Yeah.
3x10 squats, whatever. He would always do low bar, and I would always do high bar because I preferred high bar for whatever reason. I don't know. Just felt better to me, I guess. And he would always try and convince me and be like, "God, just do low bar, man. You can lift more weight." Just looking back on it, wrong way of looking at it anyway. Shouldn't have been concerned about that for bodybuilding. But hey, at that age and that training age, you are concerned about how much load you're lifting. You're like, it's fucking everything.
Especially if you're
Got to be
training
stronger
with,
than people.
Yeah. If you're training with a training partner as well, we were talking about that before, you're probably going to have that element of, hey, I'm doing more than Wilbo, you know?
Yeah, he
Got one
always
up
used
on
to
you.
wear wraps as well.
So you're just cheating. He's a cheater.
Yeah.
Low bar wraps.
Yeah, so I would be trying to match him in my bare knees high bar.
Who had bigger legs?
I don't know. I don't
Who
know.
has bigger
Back
legs
then,
now?
I don't know. Well, I'm like fucking 30 kilos heavier than him, whatever.
That's all that matters.
There you go.
The
He's
long
come out
game.
on top.
It's
Yep.
the long game.
That's right. Stick with your high
Yeah.
bars.
I remember I was similar with like when I was first squatting and obviously coming from Cali, I didn't really squat all that much.
No, you
I
have
would
to have
always-
small legs in that,
Yeah,
right?
I would always squat high bar.
On purpose.
And then I started like trying to start a little bit of strength stuff and just work my way around it. And one of the guys I know just kept messaging me, being like, "Man, put the bar lower, put the bar a little bit lower, try it out, try low bar, you'll move more."
Mm.
And I was like, "No, I like this." And then I like transitioned to low bar. And back then it was no issue mobility, shoulder wise, and things like that. So it was no issue. I loved it because I just started moving more weight like instantly. I was like, "Wait, this is the secret. This is the fucking secret."
It is, eh?
I took my squat from 155 for 1 to 200 in 12 weeks.
Fuck, sell that. Put that on a
Is that-
program.
Is that the squats and milk program? Is that what you did?
That was I've gone from Cali at 72 kilos to strength at 95 kilos in 12 weeks.
Okay, so
Yeah,
we had
so-
a good 22 kilo body weight increase as well with that.
Yeah.
Not only the body weight, also you went from not squatting to squatting. So
Yep.
that usually helps
Yeah.
squatting.
Mm.
I went from not doing anything to SBD only.
Okay.
Yeah,
like a
that
couple
was
of
my
accessories.
experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it worked.
Yeah, you would have got strong.
Yeah.
You should hope so.
I went from like 100 kilo bench to 140. Squat was 150 to 200. And then deadlift was like 140 to 210.
That was my
12
experience
weeks.
coming from bodybuilding. So not quite as different as calisthenics, but like I still did squat, bench, and deadlift. But for usually higher reps and not near as much of an emphasis in the program. Like it was just 2 or 3 sets or whatever it was. So when I transitioned to powerlifting, obviously those lifts went through the roof because it was at the start of each program rather than maybe a couple exercises in. It was for way more volume. It was for lower reps, which means higher weight, which means more strength gains. And I always have this conversation with some bodybuilders because we have people who are bodybuilders like Ollie in here who are jacked out of his mind and he's strong as fuck when it comes to like dumbbell
very
pressing
jacked.
or, leg pressing or leg, whatever. Any sort of like kind of more isolation-y other movements.
Hamstring curls.
Yeah. I think he's the only person in
Specifically.
here to do the stack on the hamstring curl in here.
Yeah,
I came
he
in the
came-
other day and the pin was all the way down the bottom.
Nah.
I'm like, who the
That's him.
That this is
Solid.
the
It's only-
ultimate power move. Like, if we're going to talk about a power move ever being performed, if you fan of Hamish and Andy, you'll know power moves. I was warming up. I was doing my top set the other week, and it was like 45 kilos, which on ours is like
pretty good.
okay. It's not.
Yeah,
it's
that's
not
pretty good.
bad. It's not great.
Yep.
He comes over. He's like, "Oh yeah, I just got to warm up if you don't mind." I was like, "Oh sweet man, no dramas. Just jump in. Like change it to whatever you need to. Drop it down if you need." He's like, "Oh, it's all good." Drops it down to 65 for his first warm up set. And I was like, oh, "Come on, bro." And then I was just
Mad dog.
take my pin out, put it back, and
Yeah.
do my set. And I'm struggling. And he just like lays down, puts it all the way down, and goes, "Oh yeah, this will be it for me." And just pumps him out. I was like,
No worries, bro.
thanks, bro.
hammies of steel?
Yeah, all good, mate. No worries.
And then he goes
he deadlifts 315 the other day.
Yep.
So there you
Yeah.
go.
So with him, like he's like a person like a lot of bodybuilders and people that aren't powerlifters, maybe from other sports, but typically bodybuilders will come and they'll be like, "Oh wow, you're so strong. Like I could never do that much on a squat or bench or deadlift. But I do this for 10, and it'll be like really good for 10." I'm like, you realize you could probably be really fucking strong. It's just that you don't use enough weight to get good at being strong. Like you got to lift heavy to get good at lifting heavy. And so usually if you flip the design of your program and prioritize SBD, put more volume in there, put more intensity in there, you get really good at that. So a lot of these people who are out there kind of like, "Oh yeah, like I'm pretty strong for like a bodybuilder, but I'm not. I don't know whether I'm at powerlifting numbers." It's like, yeah, because you
haven't done
practice
it.
it.
I was going to say, it's like one theory I've always had is that I always have a tendency to notice that like when people come from bodybuilding to powerlifting, they tend to do really bloody well because they've already spent years building the muscle. They've already got all the the base.
They've just got to get neurologically
Whereas like if people
skilled.
start powerlifting, and let's use the hyper-specific lens,
Yep.
they start powerlifting first, going over to try and do bodybuilding, they tend to struggle because now all of a sudden they've gone from like low reps, higher weight, all this sort of stuff to trying to now build all this muscle and things like that.
It's also because powerlifting is inherently, like any sport, like biased towards certain muscle groups and stuff like that. So there's things that are going to be lagging if you go to a bodybuilding that's all focused on balance.
Yes.
So like bodybuilding is just so unique in that way that unless you do bodybuilding, you're probably not going to be like the crossover from other sports is not massive.
No.
Yeah.
Whereas if you kind of do strongman, you'd probably be pretty good at powerlifting. If you do powerlifting, you'd probably be good at strongman, or if you've rugby league, you'd probably be good at AFL to some
all in the
degree.
same realm.
Yeah, like close enough.
Yeah.
Whereas bodybuilding such its own fucking thing.
Yeah.
But they do have a lot of muscle.
Yeah.
Too, yes.
It's also great that when you have someone that hasn't done a lot of that training and then they come in and run something like a powerlifting block or a cycle and they get some great results. How good is that for buy-in though, that you get, such great return on a little investment of, changing that specificity lens a little bit. Makes great for gym promo when people come in, they haven't done it before. Hey, we took this guy from 0 to 60 in no time.
As I just said, 12 weeks.
Yep, 12 weeks.
Transformation.
Yeah.
You'll
They
just
could have
leave out some of
marketed-
those details.
We don't need to tell them everything, but
Come put on 22 kilos to get your blood pressure raised.
Marketing
no,
101.
my blood pressure was good, but I was fit then. I could still
I don't know
run.
why you keep bringing that
I
up.
still had
It's
abs
obviously a sore
and I
point.
could still run.
Yeah, you don't have to
So-
defend yourself, mate.
Not
So like
saying-
we all know.
Yeah. I'm not saying he's looking purple. It could be the drapes or something. It's just bouncing off.
Yeah.
No, I went
Blending
blending this morning. I got sunburnt. I'm really
Ah,
white.
Yeah, here we
I'm
go.
really white.
Here we go.
And I go on walking the last 2 mornings at Burley. I keep getting sunburnt.
Look after that heart, mate.
Heart health.
Cool. What we're actually here to talk about.
It's not the topic for today.
It is health.
Yeah,
Yep.
We're
Good
about about ish a year and a half since I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, and I thought, hey, we've obviously brought it up in previous episodes and it's been mentioned, but I actually haven't done like a a real episode on it. I get a bunch of questions on Instagram, on people at comps, everything, just kind of talking over it, giving just asking different questions or just want to talk about it in general. So I thought, hey, let's put it out as a podcast. Approximately 18 months post, because I've learned a bunch of lessons. At the start, I was kind of like getting my head around it, but yeah, I feel like now I'm a little bit more clear on the issues that have come from it, like the things where it holds me back, the things that aren't as big of a deal as what I maybe thought it was at first. So yeah, I thought let's get a couple of common questions from you coming out. But first, I think we just, as we do with most episodes, kind of like put a couple of definitions out there.
I was about to say, I think we should define it,
Yeah.
because we had this conversation, and I know some people, their interpretation of what diabetes is, especially with the difference between type 1 and type 2, isn't really well known.
I fucking hate it. I hate that the name is the same and it's just like type 1 or type 2. It's just, if any doctors are out there, I don't know who has the power to change names of things, but if you do, could somebody please just name them different fucking things, so to save me a lot of conversations. But I don't get what they're both to do with insulin. That's about as far as it ends. But or insulin resistance. But type 2 is essentially kinda lifestyle generated, as in like it's basically an extreme form of the end of the road of insulin resistance. So you have, through lifestyle factors, whether that's being unfit or unhealthy eating or whatever, your body has secreted so much insulin, and it's just kind of like lessened. The body is just not uptaking it or not responding to it as well anymore. In a roundabout sense, that's obviously not technically right, but there's in a roundabout, it's like that, and you can kind of somewhat reverse it, in that you can get fitter, eat healthier, and do a bunch of things, maybe take some medications and whatnot, and you can improve your insulin resistance back to the position where you might not get fully back, but you can improve it a lot. Yeah. Because you're still actually producing insulin. You just got to make that insulin work for you within the body.
And on that as well, there's actually type 2 requiring insulin and type 2 not requiring insulin.
Yeah, it depends how far up that spectrum you are. Yeah,
so
how
you can
far
still have type 2 without the insulin requirement, which is something I learned.
Yeah, it depends exactly how far down that road you are.
Yes.
Whereas type 1, which is what I have, is genetic in nature. It's not lifestyle induced. It's something that is dormant somewhat within you. And usually, for the most part, it comes out during teenage years. That's the most common time. However, it can come out at any point in your life. And it's an autoimmune thing. So your body has, for some fucking reason, decided that your pancreas is a bad guy, or the pancreas cells that produce insulin are a bad guy, and it attacks those cells, kills those cells, and therefore you just don't produce insulin anymore. So you might be the most insulin sensitive, healthy person ever that reacts, and your body is very capable of handling insulin well. However, it's just not there. It's literally, insulin does not fucking exist. So when I eat some food and sugars are in the blood, usually your body's response would be like, get that pancreas, get some fucking insulin cranking out of that bad boy, and it'll go and do what it needs to with those blood sugars. But because those cells don't exist in me, or are lessened to a significant degree, I have to take insulin in line with the food that I eat to handle it. So yeah, one is genetic, and is, from what my educators have taught me and my own research, there's not really a reason behind it. It just is. Just like a lot of other autoimmune diseases, like Hashimoto's, or what's the gut one?
Crohn's.
Yeah, all that sort of stuff. Like, it's all autoimmune, and it's not caused by really anything. It's just, I guess, luck of the draw, right? Yeah. So there's a significant difference between those two. So it means that I'll be insulin dependent for the rest of my life, because those cells can't really regenerate unless, stem cell research and all that crap. Who knows what the fucking future holds? But at this point in time, no cure for it.
Yeah.
So I'll have to take insulin in some form to deal with my blood sugar forever.
Yeah.
When did this, like, as you said, it's been 18 months now, and you got through 30 years of life without it.
Yep.
When did it start to sort of actually showcase like an effect, or when did you start to notice?
Yeah, it's never been a problem. I've never had any issues with it. old blood work and everything was all showing my blood sugars in a good range, which is generally your first insight into it, because your blood sugars would be higher for no reason, and you'd be like, what's going on? My body's either insulin resistant or not producing insulin, one of those two things. So that would be usually your first indicator. And for me, it was. I remember during COVID-ish times, you had to go to the doctors, and because it was COVID, like they would send you to hospital for like no fucking reason, and be like, oh yeah, fuck, you've got any problem, fuck it, go to hospital. So
it's the strain we needed on the hospital system at that time.
Yeah,
Perfect.
yeah, I don't know. Yeah, so I went to the doctor and I had like some muscular pain in my side, which turned out to be just literally from training. Like I maybe strained it or some shit. I don't know. But at that point, it was just in the position of where my kidney was, and the doctor was concerned for some reason. He's like, "Like if this gets any worse, just go to the hospital just to be safe." And so it did. It got worse, and I was like, "Fuck, all right, we'll better make sure." And so I went to the hospital. When you go to the hospital through the emergency section, they give you a blood test no matter what, as well as like whatever other tests. And then that blood test was the first one. It came back as my blood sugars were a little bit high. I think they were a little bit past. The nurses didn't say anything at all because they just had assumed that I wasn't fasted, like I'd eaten, because I think it was like 10 a.m., 11 a.m. or something. So the fact that it was like high but not crazy high, they would have just assumed, hey, yeah, this guy's obviously fucking had a coffee or eaten some breakfast or whatever, and it's fine. I knew I hadn't. So to me, it was like, that's confusing. I didn't really pick up on it at that point, but now looking back on it, in hindsight, I can see like that was the first indicator. And then from there, I knew that number was a little bit high, and obviously since it wasn't crazy high, I tried to treat it as like insulin resistance and tried to do the all the things that you would do for that. So like upping cardio, lowering carbs within the diet, and all the other lifestyle factors that you can do, taking metformin or berberine, stuff like that. I recruited the help of a bunch of people. Luke Lehman was the primary one that was helping me out. But even Mike T. Nelson and a couple of these other like world leading people on this area. And all the shit that they were telling me, I was like, oh, sweet, like that makes sense. And then I would go and fucking try it. Like I said, lowering the carbs, extreme, like all this different stuff. And then I would go and get a blood test, and like the number was like higher. And I was like, what the fuck? If I'm eating no carbs, why is my blood sugar like through the fucking roof? Like, what the fuck? And it was also around the point where sleep was starting to get a bit shitty. I was just feeling like hell fatigued, but we were opening this gym at that certain point. So I was just kind of masked by the gym opening as like the fatigue could be because of that.
Yeah, definitely.
So that kind of masked that symptom. And then the reason why I eventually went and followed it up further was because of the Luke stuff Luke was helping me out with, and blood sugar was going up from the bloods. That combined with just started to piss constantly, like way more than like, maybe I've drank a little bit too much water, like to the point where it's just like ridiculous. And then because of that, also I was drinking tons of water, like liters at a time, not a little bit quenched, need to quench the thirst type thing, but like ridiculous amounts. And then that's when I was like, nah, there's definitely something wrong. So that's when I went to my GP. Thankfully, she was a legend. She was like picking up on those symptoms pretty quick because they're all the classic symptoms, and then went and sent me for a blood test to get the what do they call them? Like the markers with there's specific tests in your blood work.
HbA1c.
No, the HbA1c is like essentially like long-term look at blood sugars. Because your blood cells carry it around for I think it's 3 months.
3 months, yes.
But no, there's actual markers for the. You know how I said like it's with autoimmune, like your body is attacking itself essentially. Like those the things that do the attacking internally.
Yep.
You can test for them.
Yes.
So you have to get a specific test to test for those in your blood or in your system. And so we went and did the blood test specifically looking for those autoimmune things, whatever the fuck they are.
I think it's ALA. I think that's one of them.
They all have. They're all different.
They're all different names for different
We're not
things.
doctors here.
No. But there's
This is not medical
these
advice.
things. No. The special guys that are part of your immune system that attack and kill off the thing that's that are working against you. You can do tests specifically for them. So like we did the test specifically for that because she looked at me and I guess she was thinking, hey, this probably isn't type 2. And then she did the test specifically for them, and I got the bloods back saying that you have got these markers present, which means that it is type 1, it is autoimmune. So and then at that point, obviously started to take insulin and do all the things that you would do for type 1.
What was like the first thing that kind of like went through your mind being like diagnosed with something that, like we were talking about before, it's not quite sure how it's come about. It's quite uncertain of when it comes about, maybe in a timeline. Like, what was the first kind of thought going through your mind around that?
I think just confused. I think at the very start, just confused. I'm like, what the fuck? What?
Yeah.
Because like when you don't know as much, and you guys might relate to this, but like when I was like 20 or some shit, it was a joke. It was like when your mates goes and gets like a Pop-Tart or something, you'd be like, "Hey, you're gonna get the fucking beaters, man," like, or you're gonna get a pizza, like it's just a bit of a joke.
Yes.
And so that was always just a running joke between friends type thing. Obviously, that's type 2. But and didn't really know what the fuck type 1 was or the difference between them. And so when that happened, I was just like, what? Like how? And then that's when I obviously started to learn all this stuff a little bit deeper. Thankfully, I already had a bit of an idea around how the body works, being in the fitness industry. The insulin's obviously a big part of our bodies and how we operate, and comes into our nutrition coaching considerations, and comes into our even performance coaching, our programming considerations and things a little bit, the aspects around it. So I've got a good leg up on people, but still a bit of a shock and a bit of a confusion at the start. But thankfully, I just had some really good support networks. I think obviously you guys, Mickey, and the people that are around me just in life generally. And then also my diabetes educator, Laura, was a really big help in just being supportive and teaching me the ropes. Because there are, other than just living with it on a day-to-day basis, there are some other annoying kind of factors to it, like going through an airport. Like, now I have all these fucking needles and shit, and like, and then they're like, okay, what's going on here?
A few extra cavity searches on the way through the airport.
Yeah, and now that I use a pump, it's attached to me. So like I can't put that through the scanner because it can like fuck with it, and you're talking like an over $8,000 piece of kit that's vital for me to live. So like I can't risk fucking that shit up. So now every time I don't put it through, and I have to get like a pat down every single time I walk through an airport. So stuff like that. Or, maybe I go away on a holiday for 6 months. Not that I plan on it, but maybe I do. And like, fuck, now I have to take like 6 months worth of insulin and 6 months worth of pen needles and 6 months worth of all that other shit. Like, it's a lot to take.
Yeah.
Like a whole fucking suitcase of this shit.
It's a lot more preparation.
Yeah.
About
so 6 months worth in the gym at the moment.
A lot floating about. Insulin. I just have insulin everywhere. There's just fucking pen here, pen there.
Yeah.
If you go to our house, it's just, you might find a pen wherever you are. It's a bit of a...
Ours is chewing on one.
Yeah, loves it. Nah.
Even almost dialing it back a little bit on that, more relating it, I guess, to the training side of things. Because like that was the point in time when we were opening the gym and we were all sort of like,
I don't know how much
training,
you guys
training
remember.
together.
Yeah.
I remember a fair bit because I remember you going, we were talking about it a lot.
Like,
you and me were talking about it quite a bit on our mentor calls about you going to Luke, you're doing all this cardio stuff.
You
basically went 0 carbs almost.
It's keto,
all of
pretty
this
much
random,
keto.
all this stuff that you were doing. And I know that at that time as well, with relation to training, was like almost just a frustrating experience for you because you just didn't understand why you were sore all the time. Why, like, your body just didn't seem like it was recovering.
Yeah, 100%.
What with that process, like, was that one of the first steps that made you go and get the bloods, or was it just more, it just happened to be a part of the mix?
I remember going to Luke or the doctor, or probably a few people, and just going like, this was at the later stages before diagnosis, and I was just like, I literally just can't do anything. I'm just so shit in the gym. I just get so fatigued, so tired.
You were prepping for Pro Raw at this point too, weren't you? Potentially.
Was that around there? I'm not sure. I don't think so. I think it was maybe on the cards, but with the opening of the gym, we decided to leave it pretty early.
Yes.
But I remember going to, as this place was getting developed and we were putting everything together here, we were training at World Gym around the corner. And I remember like loading up for a set of RDLs, first exercise. So not even like tired from anything else. And I was like doing like a set of, I think I was programming like a set of 10. And I was doing a weight that was hard, but like wasn't my best. And, and I remember just doing that one set and being like, holy fuck, like I'm done. Like I'm wrecked. And then I went and just like sat on the stairs and just like went like, okay, I guess that's me.
I guess that's it.
And then I was like, I just couldn't fucking
specific
the endurance.
program.
Yeah.
One exercise and done. Sorry, boys.
But not even one exercise, one set. And I remember
10 though.
just my endurance was just absolutely shot. Like literally nothing in the tank. Fuel tank was going on empty. And that moment was the particular moment in training that I remember being like, fuck, like something's definitely wrong. I remember saying it to Mickey a lot. I'm like, nah. I'm like, she's like, oh, you're probably just tired, or she knew I wasn't sleeping well because I had to piss so much during the night. And like, the opening of this, and she was like trying to be comforting me, like, oh, you're probably just tired with things. And like, I was like, no, like, surely I can do more than one set of RDLs.
Pretty sure you still did a set of deadlifts at that point, 300 times like 6 to 8 or something like.
I was
crazy
strong
on the bumpers. So
yeah, I was strong, but I just had no endurance.
Yeah.
Just no endurance, like no volume endurance. It's the same as when you are sick. Like a lot of my clients, they'll be sick and they're like, should I train? Shouldn't I train? And we have that conversation a lot with clients, and sometimes the answer will be, yeah, okay, like it's not bad enough it's going to infect other people, so go train. And then they'll find that they are strong for like a set, like the actual top end strength isn't impacted, but they just have no repeatability. Like they just can't.
Real quick.
It just fucking tanks hard, and I that's what it felt like to me. Like I was just had nothing left up. Like I only had like a really small gas tank. Still a big engine, but no fucking gas tank.
So you noticed that performance decrement more over time. You had a lot of other signs and stuff like that first off.
Yeah.
The performance stuff came a little bit later.
Yeah, a little bit later. It's the same as anything. Like you're doing too much volume in your training. First week you'll be fine.
Sure.
Second week you're like, fuck, it's feeling a bit rough. Maybe I don't feel like I'm recovering. DOMs are a little bit more. Third week you're like maybe stalling out. You're not making progress. And then fourth set you're going backwards. Fifth week you're going backwards, etc.
Sixth week you're Ben Polkov.
Yeah, you're just ruined. Yeah. So poor man. But
Shout out
that was it. But even like I'll be usually at that point in that example with training, it'll be like, okay, deload. And then kind of like refill, and then go back into the start.
Can't really deload after one set of RDLs, though, can you?
But even with the deload set, I was like, I fucking can't deload shit. And even after I did that a couple of times. And I'm like, it's just not coming back. Like I just got nothing anyway. So yeah.
Continuing on, I guess, on the conversation of performance and things like that. Now talking post-diagnosis, what was your first, or even maybe some of your thought process surrounding training and things like that? Were you like, fuck, this is it for me? Like I can't train again? Where was your head at with that?
No, I think I got past them pretty quick.
Yep.
I think other people who weren't maybe as knowledgeable as me with training and the human body might have been a little bit more of that. But for me, I knew that once you start taking insulin, like the problem is there's no insulin.
Yes.
It's not another problem. So as soon as you start taking insulin, technically, well, fuck, we should be sweet here. And it was pretty much instant. It was hectic. I don't know how much you guys remember, but I remember at Pro Raw, I weighed, like when I went down to handle everybody at Pro Raw, I weighed in at like 102 or 3.
Yeah, you got lean.
That was my lightest. And a lot of that was like definitely like glycogen from eating lower carb and a bunch of other things. But I remember once I started taking insulin, like within a week, I'd almost put that entire 10 kilos back up to like 112, 13.
Really crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy quick.
Yeah, it was almost like my body was just like, hey, here we are. Here's some fucking Jesus. Like,
we need this.
Like, can actually utilize this fucking sugars, and actually do the things with it now. Because that's kind of what insulin is. It's kind of like it's not this simple, but to give people an idea, insulin's like a traffic controller. Like it tells stuff where to go. Like it's like, yeah, you go there, we need this sugars to go over and repair muscle. We need this to go do that function within the body. So it's kind of like in a roundabout sense, very simplified way, but it kind of does that job. So nothing was kind of getting done with that sugar. It was just floating around in the blood. So once you start taking the insulin, it gets, okay, cool, go and use it. Yep. So yeah, regathered a lot of energy, body weight, strength, endurance, all the stuff we talked about, it came back like fucking real quick.
Yeah,
It still impacts me to this day a little bit, but once I saw that effect, it kind of made me go, oh, all right, it'll be okay to some degree.
At that pro raw was when because there's obviously a couple of high level powerlifters who also have type 1 diabetes, Alana.
Yeah, Alana
Jordan,
within
like that. I know
Australia.
you were
we had
having conversations with them.
We have Alana. There's a few key. They were probably the two key people that I talked to before I talked to anybody. Was Alana, who actually competes this weekend at GPC Nats, but she hits her targets this weekend. I know she's going to be like an all-time world record holder.
Number 1 under 67.5 in sleeves.
Yep. Wow. So she's
a weapon.
Fucking she's not bad. Yeah. So I know she was up there as far as like powerlifters with it. Jordan Hellier, who's one of the Zero coaches over in Wales. So he came over and did that pro raw. So I had a good opportunity to talk to him, but he was really useful as well online. And not that I ever reached out to her because I was going to, but I never honestly needed to. But like one of the more famous powerlifters who has type 1 is also Jess Bittner, who's an IPF champion. The forklift. So that's not my nickname for her. That's her name. That's what she goes by apparently. So
we hope
great deadlifter.
Yeah.
If it's a
might have just started something.
No, she's definitely said. So like I knew that those were up there, so I reached out to them and said like, what problems do you face? And they were all kind of really positive with, and obviously Alana, Jess, Jordan, they're all pretty good powerlifters, if not great powerlifters. And and there's also other sportsmen that I've figured out since. So there's like AFL, a few AFL players that have it.
Yeah, there is a couple of out there.
There's a couple in every sport, basically.
Yes.
There's only not many sports that you can't do. Because like I said, once you replace the insulin, that's it. It's just more the annoyance and the practicality of that replacement of insulin. So like having to monitor your blood sugar. So like I have this continuous thing on my arm, but either that or finger pricking to test the blood, to test like what your sugars are at. That's kind of annoying, fucking annoying. And then you have actually taking insulin. So you have the option of either injecting using the pens or a pump. And the pump you have to replace every 3 days, and it only holds a certain amount of insulin. And obviously you can only have a needle in you for so long before it's kind of like infection isn't great. So like either one of those options is like the pros and cons to them, but that neither of them are fucking great. Like I wouldn't choose to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like it's more like that practical impact on life. It's like, this is fucking annoying.
Do you see that as like, because obviously you've been someone who's quite regimented on point when it comes to training, when it comes to your food, do you just see this as another piece of that equation now? And it's just something that you have to do as part of your ability to perform at your best?
Yeah. Yeah. If I stay on top of those things, it's fine. But the practical, the more, the mental side of it kind of impacts me the most, as in like, it's kind of like in computer terms, like there's always a little bit of memory being taken up. You know what I mean? Like there's a little bit of processing power fucking being. Yeah, it's just like this thing I'm constantly thinking about in the back of my head, going like, where's my blood sugar at? Fucking, what am I doing? Do I need to? I'm going out to lunch. Do I need insulin? Do it? There's just fucking annoying just thinking about it. Because usually your body is really, really good at doing this shit by itself.
Yeah.
So yeah, the mental side, little bit of mental power that it's taken up constantly is the biggest impactor. And then at first it wasn't really an issue, but now looking on how it impacts training now, the biggest way it impacts training now would be, it's probably two main things, and that's on the fatigue point of view and recovery point of view. It just, my sleep isn't as good as it ever was. Like, because if you run high overnight, which is pretty common because you're asleep, so you can't take insulin when it's going high, so you can't control it as much. Thankfully, a pump handles that, but if I get lazy and don't want to use a pump, it's fucking, it goes high. But when you're higher, you won't get into a deep sleep because essentially like your body's just got, like, you got sugar in you. It's like, is it go time? So you're never getting into a deep sleep. I'm just not relaxing fully in sleep, and it impacts me. I wake up tired and fatigued for training. And then on the other side of that, if I'm like going low overnight, like it alarms off and tells me like, hey, you have to go eat food or whatever, and it'll wake me up, and I'll be up multiple times throughout the night worrying about it, thinking about it. So my sleep just, although I'm pretty good at it and the pump does do a lot for it, it's still like, it's just still not as good as it ever was. and obviously we know sleep is arguably the main contributor to recovery.
It's pretty bloody important.
Yeah, so it's up there when it comes to recovering from training, as alongside nutrition as kind of like the big players. So yeah, it impacts on that side a lot, and then the other one would be just acute training, as in like if my blood sugars aren't in kind of the right spot, and then I come into training, and then they go low during training, then I'm like, fuck, and I have to have some food or have a drink, because when you go low, like you'll just feel weak and shit. So like it massively impacts training if that's the case. So if I don't have a really good, maybe I skip lunch because I was busy or whatever, and I'm running a little bit lower than I normally would into training, and then I come into training, and then it's going to go even lower because I'm exerting myself and using up those sugars. So like then I end up too low, and I end up shit, and then it's like this fucking pain in the ass to try and get it back up. Because I could go just eat food and then come back to it. But by that point, you're just over it. Like you just you've just spent the last half an hour like eating food or whatever, or waiting to kind of feel good again, and you're just kind of like just lost your momentum. You're just like, fuck this shit.
Why we got the lolly jar?
Yeah, that helps.
Snack
that helps
jar.
a bit. Usually, like a Maximus or something to get some in quickly
Quick digesting
helps. But still, it's annoying
for sure,
because it's like that half an hour thing where it's just like hard to get back in that same groove after that.
Well, you've been a bit more on momentum with training of the last little while. Like, have you found a difference in kind of getting into your stride with it now? Like, do you feel like you're starting to get on top of it? You can manage it better. I'm assuming a lot better than when you first learned about this a year and a half ago.
Adding to that, on the topic of conversation about before with the RDL, saying you couldn't sustain long training. Like, have you found that that's actually improved again? Can you sustain the same levels you were pre-diagnosis, things like that?
Yeah, it's hard to say because obviously there's so many different factors.
Sure.
But yeah, definitely way better from pretty much everything's like somewhat. If all of my insulin's back on track and I'm very diligent and planned with taking everything, it doesn't, other than those mental things and those other little things, affect too much. So it's not that big a deal. But yeah, I'm a lot better at handling it these days, and but I still, that's the thing though. I have to be really on top of it throughout the day, and sometimes there's just like that little bit of mental burnout where it's just like, I just can't be fucked. Like this thing on my arm last 10 days, so you have to reapply it every 10 days, and sometimes at the end of the 10 days, I'm just like, ugh, like, oh no, I just can't be bothered, because it's not like it's just a sticker and you just stick it on and it's real easy. Like there's a little applicator and it like stabs you. Not that it's painful, but it's like it's not fun.
Annoying.
It's not exactly the fucking thing I want to be doing. So, and yeah, and sometimes I just get over it and I'm like, fuck this shit. Just like I'll leave it a day in between, and then I'll be really fatigued. I'm like, oh yeah, fuck.
Yeah, there's definitely been a few times we found the pump laying around the gym somewhere that you've cracked it and just like,
yes,
not today.
Yeah.
And it's beeping in a corner or something, being like, oh fuck.
Yeah, it gets pissed off. It blares off its head around the fucking, you're out of range or whatever. Fucking, that's what I mean. It just gets to that. That's what does the most damage, is when I get to those certain points where I just like, I can't be fucked, whether it's been like a bad day in terms of other shit going on, like I'm busy or we've got heaps on in here and I'm trying to get ready, and then that thing's fucking blaring off, and then I'm like, and then yeah, it'll start to impact training and the other things, and it can just add up quickly. So
it snowballs.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I'm like, yeah, if I stay on top of it, minimal impact, other than like the sleep and the other, like it's still not really ideal, but it's more like me, like there are moments where I'm just like, fuck this. And so like that's when it impacts. So if I was during a prep or whatever, it's a little easier to kind of make those sacrifices, as with all the normal sacrifices you make, like just social and all that. I was a lot more on top of that for like my pro prep. But in these off seasons, you're kind of like, ugh, yeah, it's a little easier to fall off the road a little bit.
Yeah, sure. I guess last one to try and close it out, unless you got anything more you wanted to add to that story, or if you've got any more questions.
That's pretty much everything we've.
Yeah, I was just wondering as well, like what you would say to someone who's maybe recently discovered that they're also, type 1 diabetic and going through a similar thing. Like now knowing what you do over the last 18 months, what's kind of the first thing or piece of advice you'd give to that person?
Well, like I said, for me, it was kind of unique because I had a lot more knowledge in fitness and with the human body and with this sort of stuff, even the psychology of training, it kind of overlaps a little bit with other things that people have going on. Just like general stress and that, we're having the similar conversations with people, not necessarily on diabetes, but just stress and managing stress. So like a lot of these use same strategies. But most people aren't as knowledgeable as me. And a lot of them do fall into the trap of thinking like what you guys said earlier about like, it's going to massively impact my ability to do anything. And oh shit, now I can't eat fucking pancakes anymore or some shit. I don't know. Like people think, oh, they're so restricted with food now.
Right.
None of that's the case. Like I said, you're literally just replacing your insulin that you would normally produce with some exogenous insulin. And if you do that and you stay on top of that, you can eat whatever the fuck you want. You can train however you want to train. You can still be better than most people. It's just another thing that's not ideal, but I mean,
don't let it be the
life.
End of the world.
Yeah, that's life. Yeah. You have to. Yeah. So just that's all I'd say is to just keep the chin up and know that it's manageable and that it's not going to be like massively life impacting unless you let it be. On that note, I do feel for the kids, like other adults that are maybe my age or older that have been diagnosed that late, or maybe they were diagnosed earlier and they just kind of like let it turn to shit, and they're trying to now figure it out a bit more. They're harder because you already set your ways. It's harder to change your lifestyle. You understand it, but maybe you're not willing to put in like the work towards it or whatever. Like I said, maybe not. You're using it as a bit of an excuse, maybe even sometimes. But kids, I feel worse for, because like when you're a kid, it's like you have this perception of you're all on an even playing field. You know what I mean? Like if I go to school, we're all going to have lunch and we're all going to have the ability to play sports and do whatever work we want and stuff like that. And these kids maybe can't eat the same foods. They can, but they don't understand it yet. So they have to be a little bit more restrictive, or they have to take insulin, or they have to wear a pump, or they have to go and, do finger pricks or whatever it is that they're managing. So like there's other stuff with their life that they're just going to have to deal with, and they're going to have to go like, okay, well, like this is, why can't I fucking do this other shit? So I feel for them, because like I just couldn't even imagine. It's been enough of a lifestyle impact for me at 30, whatever it was, low 30s, to figure out this shit. And I'm so lucky that I knew so much about the body and about insulin and about all this other stuff before I started. But it's still been annoying. I've still had a lot of shit to figure out in the last 18 months. But I couldn't imagine being a 15-year-old kid or a 12-year-old kid or whatever and going like, hey, you've never got this thing. Like, and you're like, holy fuck, like that would be massively impacting. Yeah. And so, I feel for them.
Yeah.
And I try to help out any parents that have diabetic kids, or any kids that are diabetic. I always encourage them, like, reach out to me.
I was about to say that and mention that, like, there was a bit of a reoccurring theme throughout from the start to the end with all of this, is that you've had a great support network around you, from your diabetes educator, the people in the industry being able to ask, who are literally at the top of the game, how it impacts them.
Even just family and friends around you, just understanding.
Like,
that's super valuable.
Obviously having that around, and if you do get diagnosed, as a kid, it's hard because you're like probably shy away. You might be a bit embarrassed or something. Like, the more you can learn about it, the more you can understand.
because you're different, and you're like, why the fuck am I different?
Even as a kid, trying to like maybe even educate others, like it's hard because kids just don't understand it.
Yeah, exactly. Because their friends are just going to be, because that's how kids are. They just ask, I think, and they'll be like, why are you taking that shit? I don't have to take that. And then like, they don't know the answer to that. So like, I massively feel for the kids. But yeah, so if anybody wanted to chat or knows anybody that might be in that boat as a kid or a parent of that situation, I'm always happy to chat through it.
Yeah. I think that's an important thing that you brought up, and I was going to highlight that as well. It's like, if especially you're not dealing with all of these things just on your own, there's plenty of people out there that are going through similar things, and plenty of people that you can talk to get some better perspective on that situation, to be able to guide you through that. And that's super important, because I remember dealing with that as a kid as well, going through my heart problems and conditions and shit.
Yeah, you would relate.
Yeah, and it's like, even I think you were talking about like, hey, why doesn't everyone else do this? I remember still being like 4 or 5, with this big scar on my chest from surgery, and thinking, until I saw other kids without their shirt off, I thought everyone had one.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
thought everyone had one.
Yeah, exactly.
Why
yeah.
not? Why wouldn't they?
That's
I got
pretty
one.
reasonable, yeah.
Yeah, I haven't seen any other kids without their shirts off, so I just assumed.
Hey,
But
I grew up with glasses, so I know.
yeah,
I know the feels.
yeah, we'll get those
not
photos
not
up
the
again.
same comparison, but I got roasted.
Yes. Any point of difference, kids
Any
will
point- oh.
absolutely
Yeah, kids are mean.
4 eyes.
That's all
pull
right.
it apart.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's not my fault.
Yeah.
Sorry, my vision sucks.
But yeah, I think that's a good message to kind of close it out on, that there's always people that are going to be around to help and support you through it, and there's always someone you can talk to that knows a little bit more and can shed some new light on that situation.
Yeah, support network's massively important. Like with my diabetes educator, at first when I first got diagnosed, I was like, I don't know how helpful she's going to be, because like she doesn't really know like my lifestyle and my training and what I do. I'm definitely far from your typical diabetic person that would walk into her office. I'm sure of that. So I just wasn't sure how helpful she could be. I also felt like I had a pretty good handle on it already, because I was like, yeah, it's insulin, take insulin. To replace the insulin makes sense. Fuck, all good. But I'm super glad that I did. I'm super glad, because even though, she didn't really need to educate me as much as maybe some of those other people, just having somebody there to talk through things, and it's more like the day-to-day stuff, like being annoyed about having to, like, I'm fucking sick of this thing, like, fuck, don't want to do it. So she's dealt with a lot of people in that same boat, or gone through an airport, or gone overseas for a trip, or wanting to go swimming with a pump or whatever. Like she knows all those situations back to front. So there was lots of different other support other than just like pure education on it, even though their title is diabetes educator. A lot more support that she was able to give. And I would say that's with anything. If you have, like we've talked with Anthony on here a bunch about mental health and talking about the value of psychologists and how it can be similar. You're like, how the fuck is this person going to help? They don't know me.
Sure.
And the value in using those support networks. So yeah, I guess that's another point. People around you, friends and family, your own education that you do, the actual educators, all these stuff, use it all, because it is valuable. They all have something to add, but nobody knows you. Nobody knows you, but like, you got to give them a chance.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely worth reaching out for help.
I think that's perfect.
Cool.
Very nice.
We'll leave it there. If anybody has any questions, as always, you can jump on the website and put them through the feedback form on there. If you're
only positive,
if you wanted to see that,
no negative comments. Thank you.
Well, I hope not about this.
Yeah, out of all podcasts,
Yeah.
Imagine if this one just somehow gets
all the
roasted.
negative,
All the Beatus jokes will come out.
But yeah, bring them on though. I found it funny. But but also, if you just want to message me on Instagram in private, I'm more than happy to through those channels as well, through those pipes.
Beautiful.
Sick.
Cool.
Very nice.
Leave it.
Thank you for listening to the Nexus Unloaded podcast. Be sure to jump on our website to find details on everything mentioned in the podcast today, plus information on our coaching, mentoring, and gyms based in the Gold Coast and Townsville. Make sure you follow us on our Instagram for any updates on what we are currently doing, and we'll see you all in the next episode.